Antelope Island, the Great Salt Lake State Park, is just outside of Salt Lake City, Utah. And here we are on the causeway heading over to Antelope Island. And Antelope Island is 28,022 acres and the largest island in the Great Salt Lake, and home to free-roaming herds of bison, bighorn sheep, mule deer, pronghorn, and pronghorn antelope. Bison were introduced to the island back in 1893 with just like 12 of them, and now there's several hundred. We are on Antelope Island, which is the Great Salt Lake State Park. We're at the visitor center overlooking the lake, and you can see some bison down there. So the visitor center was pretty interesting, but not as useful as some that we've been into at some state parks. The interesting thing is the entire visitor center was surrounded on the outside by these massive spider webs and spiders. And for those of you who know me, I'm extraordinarily arachnophobic, so it was all Nikki could do just to get me to go into the building. We wanted to make sure we did at least one hike while we were on the island, and the folks at the visitor center really recommended the Buffalo Point Trail, so we decided to give it a go. It's only 4/10 of a mile one way up the slope to these massive areas of lookout, and this hike was really all about the views, and as you can see, they're just gorgeous from all the way around. Once you make it to the top of the hill, there's this plateau, and you can just walk around up there, and there's no limits to what you can do, except you don't want to fall off the edge because you can see it's pretty steep. The Boulder Valley was really neat to walk through, and it just led out to more spectacular views. And of course, if you've been following along to any of our videos, if I see a rock tower, we have to kick it over, so there you go. We made it back to the trailhead. We managed to turn a 4/10 of a mile out and back into a 1.2 mile trail by roaming around on top so much, but that is definitely worth it. That is all about the views up there here at the Great Salt Lake State Park, Antelope Island. As I mentioned, there's a herd of several hundred bison now on the island, and every year they have a roundup, and they gather them all together and thin out the herd to keep the ecosystem in good shape and keep the herd in good shape. And if you ever see those tourists who walk up close to buffalo, they're stupid. Don't be one of those tourists. These animals are massive and they can kill you in a heartbeat. Don't mess with them. Just give them their space. In 1848, Fielding Garr started his ranch on Antelope Island with a modest log cabin. Within a couple of years, Garr had expanded the ranch compound to include the adobe ranch house and other outbuildings. Shortly after Garr came to the island, the LDS Church assigned him to watch over their large cattle herd. The ranch was continuously inhabited from that time until 1981 when the state of Utah purchased Antelope Island. Over the years, the ranch housed cattle, horses, and sheep. The LDS Church operated the ranch until the mid-1870s. During this era, ranching operations encompassed the entire island. In 1869, the railroad came to Utah, and with it came the first federal surveys of the land. Because the only improvements on the island were around the ranch itself, the federal government opened the rest of the island to homesteading. By the turn of the century, most of the homesteaders had failed to prove their claims. John Dooley Sr., an enterprising businessman and rancher, purchased the entire island for $1 million, and it became the home of his Island Improvement Company. While we were there, they had some workers cleaning out the kitchen. So they're continuously trying to keep this ranch up, and they even have some horses out back that you'll see in a little bit. The lake itself is so salty, next to nothing lives in it except brine shrimp and algae. And you can see as we approach the water, the brine flies are ridiculous.
warm, like bathtub warm. The deeper I get, the cooler it is, but still very nice. I think we're up to 85 degrees outside here at Antelope Island State Park. And this is the Great Salt Lake. I'll take you under to see all the little shrimp, Brian. So I wouldn't say that you can't, oh, I guess you can't. I don't even have to work. It's just weird to float. Yeah, instinctually, I just keep wanting to tread water. It is so bizarre, but I don't have to. And there's Bruce skipping rocks. So I did it. This was one of my goals too. I wanted to float in the Great Salt Lake. Done.